Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our beautiful topic, teaching English to speakers of other languages, also known as TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, or even TESOL, teaching as a second language. Different courses, different diploma programs, different certificates in all over the world. But the main thing is you are helping other people to speak English, to understand English, to communicate in English in any way like their mother tongue, as much as is possible. And I think you'll be getting there. First of all, who am I? I am Leyla Tekul. I will be your lecturer throughout the modules. I am an English teacher myself, speaking Turkish, German, English and proficiency level, and French we will see in which level I am when we talk about the levels. But basically more communication rather than grammar or writing, reading in French. I have been teaching for years many different kinds of students, age-wise, culture-wise, nationality-wise, background-wise. So I'm hoping going through with you this beautiful curriculum we prepared for you, meanwhile adding my not only expertise but also experience to it to help you. We start with beautiful proverbs here. Actually, either this Mr. Bob Talbert's thoughts, or maybe he might be inspired by anyone else. We don't know, but beautiful. Thank you, Bob, for that. There are no teachers if there are no students, it says. Let's think about it. What does that actually mean? It looks very easy, this sentence. But when you think philosophically what it means, which means as long as there are people to know something, to want to learn something, there will also be people who help them learning it and teaching them. Good teachers are costly, but bad teachers cost more. What do you think about that? Well, sorry? I wish I could hear you. I can guess. I'm trying to elicit now. We're going to come to that. But unfortunately, you can see me, you can hear me, I can't. But I will sense somehow. Well, you think, yeah, maybe a bad teacher has taught actually something very badly or something wrong to you, and then in order to correct and fix it, you need another teacher. That is one, you're right, thinking so. But also, a bad teacher can take your motivation away, cause a lot of damage, so that you need maybe not only one teacher, but one psychiatrist and one psychologist additionally to really open up your brain to learning process. It is such a responsibility to be teaching. We're going to go step by step through it. So the topics we will be covering here are knowing your learners, and becoming an effective teacher, and motivating your students, and incorporating multiple intelligences in your lessons. So we will divide them accordingly so that you have a clear knowledge of everything and actually also test your knowledge about after the lectures. So let's start with knowing your learners. First of all, I'm going to read it, and then I will tell you how I am trying to learn you as lecture listeners and learners. In the process of getting to know your learners, your curriculum says, it is important to remember that your students come to you for a reason. Whatever that reason is, it's your responsibility as a teacher to find it out. It has been said that as teachers have reasons for teaching, students have reasons for learning. The importance of this statement towards the teaching-learning process can't be understated. Other aspects that you need to consider in knowing your learners are learning goal, age, language level, learning styles, and family and cultural background, which will be all going through step by step. Now, I think it is a little bit like being a consumer, because you're consuming knowledge. When you go to a car shop, for example, that sales associate actually has to know you not only as somebody with a bit of money in the pocket. He has to know exact needs you have while looking for a car. Do you have a family? Do you need the car for the family? Do you need a 4x4? Do you go like out of the town? Or do you need a Mini to be able to parking in the city? So everybody has a different reason to buy a car. So is with teaching or with English. So So every single student has a different reason to learn, also to learn English. Yes, it is your task to figure it out. Now you might be asking me, Leila, how do you know us? Now we're listening to you and watching you as a teacher, but do you know us? Did you prepare yourself for that? Well, actually, as much as I could, because it's a camera teaching, as much as I could, well, I kind of know your level of English, your level of study, let's say, education level. I kind of studied why a video teaching on TESOL and how a video teaching TESOL can be efficient, and prepared myself accordingly. And during this process, I will try to empathize with you and think, I have been a student of English for a very long time ago, so I will think, so what would I be actually asking Leila if I were the lecture listener or watching her? So that's kind of an empathizing process, as much as we can do through this little camera. Okay, let's continue. Our second sub-headline is learning goals. So it looks very easy, learning goals. What are learning goals? Well, I want to learn English. Not that easy. Oftentimes we take students' reason for coming to class and learning goals as one. So we think when he comes to the class to learn English, she or he wants to learn English. Not that simple. In certain instances, these two may be the same, but in some instances they are not. Now you're wondering how. For example, a student who is deprived of parental love and attention may want to come to your class because you're filling this void in his or her life. Yes, you're kind of parenting him or her. He just needs that teaching attention. Like orphaned babies when you watch animal documentaries. Then a little orphaned baby goes to another pack of animals to look at their mothers, how they teach their children. We're going to come to that when we talk about the natural intelligence. I'm going to give you some examples from nature as well, as part we are of. Obviously, he or she sees your classroom as his or her home, and you as a surrogate parent. There you go. Maybe you have your own children at home. Maybe you're too young to have one. Maybe you will never ever have one. But now you have one, a surrogate one, and act accordingly. Another student comes to your class and he or she would like to improve his or her knowledge of English grammar. What would you like to have more than this? That's very easy case, ladies and gentlemen. This example shows clearly the student's learning goal. In this situation, that we can easily say that reason and learning goal are the same. Simply put, learning goals are associated with skills that the students would like to develop and or enhance. We will later go more deeply into that, like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is a little bit connected to that, but we will hook there later on. Whatever the student reason and or learning goal is, it always affects students' attitude towards learning and consequently his or her performance. For example, according to my experience, I can only tell here, add to this beautiful curriculum, that in the years I have been teaching, I have seen so many different goals, even some differences in the same class. For example, some of them are just interested in proficiency tests, basically in the mark they're getting through any test. And some of them are just immigrants. They want to just immigrate to another country, no academic goal or even no professional goal. They don't want to be teachers. They just want to be able to communicate and find a proper job. So you might be teaching them. Some of them, actually very few of them, but there are just government supported and just want to make use of that. Fantastic, the government is paying them. They come to a country, kind of a learning holiday. Well, there it's a bit difficulty for the teacher because you cannot actually let them focus easily on something because they are enjoying their time and learning English is a side effect. It can happen. And then there are definitely academic purposes. And I even had a student who just wanted to travel around the world, coming from a very rich Mexican family. His only goal was maybe having some girlfriends all around the world and being able to communicate in different countries through English. That's a goal. So it is not always the curriculum. It is sometimes why and what they learn is so different in the same class even. Take note too, your curriculum says that such reason and or learning goal is clear to both of you, must be clear. Hence, on the first day in the classroom, ample time should be spent on leveling of expectations. There you go, we didn't even come to the level of English yet. We have to level the expectations. Why are these beautiful people sitting in your classroom and staring at you? What do they expect as end effect? Okay, who they are we are talking about. Here we talked about their goals and their expectations. Now let's look at their ages, because that can very much affect your teaching styles. Age. When it comes to teaching English to speakers of other languages, learners can be described as children, ages 2 to 14, adolescents, 12 to 17, the teenagers, young adults, 16-25, and adults, 21-55. Oh my God, I am on the borderline here. And there may be another category, the seniors, me and over, 50 and older. As you may see, the ages overlap because of the onset of developmental changes, physical, intellectual, social, and emotional varies from individual to individual. I was 40-something when I took my master's. Why? Because I could even go for PhD and go even more. Maybe next time when you meet me, I will be doing interpretation or translation masters. You never know, because I am kind of a bit addict to learning. Although I am 55, I don't mind. Some people feel with 20 or 22, they're already ready, they chose their goal, they do that in a stable way, they don't want to move anywhere else, learning a little bit of English and nothing. Although their age and they could actually learn the world yet, but they're not interested. So it's totally up to what you really want in life and how far you want to go with self-development. Let us categorize the learners into 3. It's easy because you can divide the teenagers into 2 groups, but generally it's considered, specifically in TESOL teaching, children, adolescents, and adults. According to the experts, pedagogy or psychology or whatever the scientists have found out, children, 1, have no clear or definite learning goals. How could they? It's very normal. They come to class without any idea of what they're going to learn. It's totally surprised. Oh, there's a nice lady, old lady, maybe older than the mother, maybe young, nice sister-like lady, or a gentleman-like, brother-like. He or she is going to show us something, and hopefully we're not going to get bored. When is the playtime again? And they might be looking at the clock, if they can still understand the clock, if they're having that age. Number 2, have involuntary attention. Sure, I mean, what kind of child would sit in the class instead of playing or chatting with friends and looking at you to learn some new vocabulary or grammar on his own or her own? So young learners don't focus on what's being taught, unlike adults. So what do we do then? Don't worry, there are ways to even get to them. They learn other things as well. That's good news. They don't bother with the language system. They don't see the system behind the language, but they're more interested in expressing themselves in another language. For example, they'll be very proud when they first learn the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what? I can count in Chinese until 10. I can count in English until 8. Do it. They show off. They're proud of having learned a vocabulary, having learned a number. That's their joy of learning. And 3, have short attention and concentration span. It says here young learners could not focus on one situation for a long time. Probably you can remember that from your younger days. Or if you already have children, you know it already. Thus, in a lesson, teachers should make sure that activities are varied and timed based on the absorption capacity of the class. so you shouldn't take it too long when you have an activity for them. By the way, even in some adults, you might find some attention deficit. Nowadays, it's a very common thing, this ADD, the attention deficit disorder. So people are getting less and less intensely focused on something. So even for the adults, you should take care of the variety in order not to bore them, but more so with the children, basically. 4, enjoy individual attention from the teacher. They enjoy because, why? When you're a child, remember how you were, or how your children are, or how your sisters or brothers are. They are the center of the attention in the family. They're not used to sharing the attention of the parents with such big group and so many people around them. He is the king in the house, or she is the princess of her parents. So you should take care of only her. That's what they think. That's what they're used to from their parents' home. So they do their best to seek teachers' attention and approval to the point that their behavior may be considered unacceptable. Like all the time, teacher, 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 they want your attention. And 5, they are interested in activities that relate to their lives, yes, and experiences. When they're interested in any singer or any, Justin Bieber or Hannah Montana or Mickey Mouse, whatever their heroes are, you have to find things around them, or animals maybe, or colors, or certain fashion games. They respond well and learn better when real life situations are used in the lessons. We will give more examples, but this, ladies and gentlemen, all we are doing in this modules are overview of the TESOL generally. So don't worry, I'm sometimes passing like a wave, like surfing around the topics here. We will delve into them in detailed way in later lessons. This is just to give you a perspective of what is TESOL all about. So be patient. Let's look at the adolescents here. 1, come to class, they come to class with certain learning expectations. That's good. So they have certain expectations. Some of these expectations, though, may not be concrete yet, not exactly knowing what they want, but still they have an idea. And number 2, they are capable of abstract thinking. I think that's the main difference between an adult or a teenager and a child. The child, it's very difficult to explain him, and you shouldn't at all, like death, or loss, or disappointment, or love, or joy. Joy is easiest, but specifically the negative or romantic, emotional or philosophical terms are totally strange to them yet. They're not there yet. But the adolescents kind of started to be dealing with them. And 3 is understand and accept the value of an academic type of learning. So they kind of start to appreciate what you're doing for them. For example, in learning language, they now appreciate why there is a need to learn the language system. So they are not necessarily resisting when you go with the articles slowly, or tenses, or prepositions. Whereas with the kids, you just have to maybe go with, how do you go there? See, you go to there, come to me, or put it on the table. It's more like gestures, but with the adolescents, it's more, ladies and gentlemen, we have certain little particles for directions, and we call them prepositions, so they will not kill you when you say that, at least, or not getting bored or annoyed. And 4, they are passionate and committed about learning things that interest them. And unlike children, whose attention span is short, we talked about it, they spend considerable time and effort to complete tasks and activities. So when they're focused, when they're interested, no problem. And 5, they seek attention and approval because of their search for identity and self-esteem. They place, however, more value on peers' approval rather than the teachers. Now, that's an interesting point here. Because, ladies and gentlemen, adolescence, as you know, as many doctors and psychologists already found out, is a time of the person's stage or age where they are trying to find their own identity. And to do so, the best way to do it for them is to compete. Even if you look at the nature, when you look at the bear cubs, they're fighting. Why are they fighting? To figure out where their strengths are. We as humans, doing it in an intellectual way, show off in between our peers. So they like to achieve and they like to boost their achievements towards their peers rather than to you. That the teacher appreciated it, maybe as an end result, it's an important thing. When they pass the class, they will say, wow, I have that mark or whatever. But in different activities, you have the luck that they want to prove themselves to their peers first. So when you actually design an activity, have that in mind for adolescents. And there we are, adults. Now, I am not there yet, I am senior, but there we are for you. Okay, 1. Have a clear understanding of their learning goals. Most of the adults do. Also, they appreciate better what they learn and how they learn. And they have more discipline and more motivation when it comes to learning, that's for sure. And they do the learning tasks even if they find the tasks quite boring. That is something, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot have the luxury with adolescents or younger learners, because to be boring, you lost the war, you lost the battle. There is no way to attract their attention if you don't interest or motivate them. With the adults, you might have a bit of better chance, because these people, like us, we are used to going through certain boring situations, call it work, call it parenting, sometimes call it dealing with in-laws. So we have been actually, slapped by the destiny in many ways, and we know what actually suffering is to achieve a goal, whereas the young people are not that patient. Number 3, have longer attention and concentration span. Normally, if we are not suffering from ADD or any other condition. They are more committed to complete the learning tasks as compared to teenagers and children. 4, have higher order processing skills. What does it mean? It means they try to apply what has been learned in their life, in their daily life. It's not like in the air. And however, whenever I'm going to use that information. No, they actually apply the information right after the class even. Maybe just talk or go next day for an information interview or just a job interview, and they apply what you actually taught them in that certain topic. The experiences affect their attitude towards learning. That's a very short sentence, but means a long thing, because we gather the maturity through our experiences, not only what is being taught technically to us. Life is sometimes our university itself. And for people who even don't have a degree necessarily, we sometimes say, when they're really acting mature, a wise way, and they're always finding solutions to problems, oh, he's graduated from the life university. So that life university kind of experience we most have as adults, and that also really is affecting our attitude towards learning. When we had a bad experience with learning, then it is very difficult for an adult to change his or her attitude in the class. So while getting to know your students, you have to also take care of their experiences, and we're going to go to there right in the next units. Corollary to the adult characteristics mentioned before, remember that as the teacher, it's your responsibility to. Please don't be afraid when I talk about responsibilities. Responsibility is a good thing. Can you imagine that somebody's success is depending on you? And you read in the newspapers or you'll hear from people that he or she has achieved a goal, and you exactly know, and he knows, and God knows, whoever you believe it knows, that it's your job. This is priceless, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to come to that. Let's look at the first point here. Know and understand your students' learning goals. I think you got it by now, why it's important. And take interest in their experiences, as this is the key to know them better. That's what we were talking about, having the life university behind. Understand that their educational and cultural backgrounds affect their learning. So it's maybe not their intelligence, maybe not that they're sleepy that day, but maybe learning is bad teachers, you remember, In the beginning of the unit, we were talking about that the bad teachers cost more. Maybe that's it. Maybe there is a baggage, there's an emotional baggage there. You have to at least sense it or figure it out, if not with details. And backgrounds we talked about. Customize the learning tasks and activities to these learning goals and make the necessary adjustments as the need arises. Now, what does that mean? Imagine you are covering a subject and the subject is past continuous or whatever, maybe a grammar point, maybe vocabulary, a bunch of vocabulary, maybe all together. So if this person, imagine, this person's learning goal is immigrating to the United States, having a green card, or maybe to Canada. And now you're actually covering a lesson with this person, which is all about growing a plant. And all the vocabulary and the grammar is turning around how to grow a plant, how to have a green thumb. Well, he might be or not might be interested in plants. And yes, he might get it, because you're a good teacher, okay. You might squeeze it into his or her head, but you would be definitely having more success if you turn the same topic in an activity as a future US citizen he might be interested in, rather than growing a plant. It's just an example, like I thought now. That's what this sentence says. Teach what is relevant and useful in their lives. So there are certain, sometimes certain demands students are asking you, and you feel like you have to express, like slang, street language, bad language, or some idioms you're not maybe supposed to teach even, because it's not necessary. That can be learned 5-6 years afterwards. And yes, you give an answer, but don't lose too much time on it. Teach more what's necessary. Because this is the first thing when we learn a language. Bad words, swear words, slangs, specifically those who are interested in United States culture, Hollywood movies, and all the verbs and the terminology used in the movies. Most of them are slang, or they're watching TV series like Friends or Desperate Housewives or whatever, and then they grab a slang word or a term which they will be never ever using. And when they come to you and say, "Teacher, what is cougar?" Okay, go first with the animal. Then you can teach the other part. And teach them with respect and be tolerant of multicultural beliefs and practices. That's so crucial, ladies and gentlemen. But good news, first bad news. Bad news, it cannot be learned right now, immediately. Good news, after a certain experience, everybody gets it. So you have to be patient with yourself with those things. There are things in English teaching a very freshly baked teacher can do and manage with intuition, with knowledge, with a nice personality from the first day on. But there are things, even if you are Einstein or genius, you have to experience to be managing it. They cannot be learned and applied in the first classroom. So don't be harsh on yourselves. Just for now, get it, put aside, you will use it. Just an example from my own experiences in terms of teaching them what is appropriate and respect their culture. I can remember to have taught a very traditionally, religiously believing group, a mostly closed society where dating is not necessarily being accepted. And I was covering the word date, come from data in Roman, first the date, like the day and the year, and then date can be used as a noun. This he's my date for this commencement dinner, like having some company, or to date as a verb. So I suddenly realized while I was covering that in a very neutral fashion that it was a little bit intimidating for the group I was talking to, because they don't date. But what should I do? Oh, sorry, no. You just go and slide over it and go to the next vocabulary, but don't insist on it. Don't give further examples. There's always a way around. So you have to teach what you have to teach, but please be a little bit sensitive towards the different culture groups. Okay, now we are there, language level. Language level. There are three basic levels. There are more of them, but when we talk as a terminology, even among us as teachers, what level is he? We don't say it is Canadian language benchmark 8, I guess. We don't talk like that. Well, we're going to go there, but we mostly say either beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Imagine a continuum where the left side corner has a label beginner, in the middle intermediate, and far right, according to your right, advanced. In between these 3 points are other labels such as low beginner, high beginner, low intermediate, and high intermediate. It's like a color scheme, basically. Take a look at the diagram in your reading material, adapted from Jeremy Harmer's book, How to Teach English. And B is beginner. LB is low beginner. So you have to get used to those abbreviations we use a lot. For example, like L1, L2, later you will see that first language speakers, second language speakers. In every subject and every area, you have to also teach your students and also get used to yourself that Americans love abbreviations. So they should learn that ASAP. Okay, intermediate, I for intermediate, LI low intermediate, HI high intermediate, and A advanced. As regards the diagram, it's important to remember the following. Beginners are those who have 0 English. I only had 1 student. That's very interesting. Intermediate students are those who have basic English skills. They can read and understand simplified text and communicate fairly well. I think I found my French. That's intermediate. And advanced students are students who can speak fluently, read and understand unsimplified text, and can express themselves clearly in writing. So basically the 3 groups we are dealing with here. Beginners, though, can be classified as real and false. And that is also related to culture, I'm going to tell you soon. Real beginners are those who have not been exposed to English at all, have never heard English. I don't know, you will say, come on, we're in America, and America is kind of the world. Is there still anybody who has never heard English? Yes, there are. There are. And the false ones are those who have knowledge of the language, but such knowledge is limited. They're afraid of talking because they're not sure. They can barely say, my name is maybe Floranza or whatever, but that's it. How old are you? They do that. They cannot do that. Why? Because they're not sure about saying, my age is 40, I am old 40 years, should I say? Or is it 40 or 14? You know, better to say nothing and just show the hands or whatever. So these are the false ones who don't dare to speak. The giving of labels and the subsequent interpretation of which vary from institution to institution. Yes, even throughout North America, we have tons of ESL schools and teaching methods. We are using different terminology. Some schools are going strictly with Canadian language benchmarks or American systems. Some of them are just going with beginners, intermediate. Actually, curriculum also determines that a little bit. It depends on which material you're using as well. So there's interchange series, there's Cambridge other series, and there are tons of different publishers dealing with Longman series. They have actually developed their own terminology to describe levels. You will get used to them. To give you a better idea of your students' language competency, you can refer to the Common European Framework or Canadian language benchmarks. Like, you can go online and find all kinds of information about it. Sorry. Learning styles, we are there now. There are 2 models which have been espoused by experts with regards to learning style. Oh, now we are going to be a little bit more scientific. Like a live show. That's nice, because I'm used to having people around me. It's not like cutting and being perfect. Nobody is perfect. I needed some water. Thank you. The neuro-linguistic programming. Wow, neuro. Because, you know, everything is going through our nervous system. So same with talking. Neuro-linguistic programming expresses that the students remember things better when they see them. visual learners. It also states that other students learn better when they use their sense of touch or their sense of hearing, audio learners. One important thing to remember is that one stimulus is more powerful than the other when it comes to enabling individuals to learn. So now you would say, oh God, how should I know what kind of learner am I dealing with here? Wait, don't panic. Suffice to say that the teacher should find out what stimulus or stimuli are most effective learning enablers for his or her students. I told you recently, it's all about experience. You will actually find it out. For example, one of my students asked me, teacher, because I'm always suggesting watch American movies, watch even news programs, watch documentaries, National Geographic Channel, Discovery Channel, according to the level of the student. But teacher, when we actually watch movies, we don't understand, and when something is going on and on and on without me understanding anything, I just get bored and just shut down. Okay. Now, there is actually a way to go around it, something called captioning. Now here, when I was learning English, some of my teachers were definitely discouraging me using it. Why? They said, they thought, dividing hearing learning and seeing learning, audio, visual, into two in your brain can distract you, they said. You either watch and hear or watch and read. When you try to do both, you're going to be confused. You know what? Maybe, but it worked for me. I was a student who was actually maybe in need of both. And in the very beginning, when I was small, I was watching cartoons and everything with captioning to capture English properly. So in my case, I needed captioning and I was not distracted by that. But some students maybe shouldn't even read when they're listening. Actually, if you're dealing with adult students, you can ask and figure it out yourself. Even when you're going through reading, you can see, are you a silent reader or an out loud reader? Some people, when they read out loud, they listen to their own sound and pronunciation and don't understand anything from what they're reading, and they actually prefer to read it in silence. Some people, when they hear the word, learn and understand better. Oh my God, that's the ocean, it's so deep. How am I going to get this? Just 1 month in business, you get it. But please be patient with the theory. Okay, so the second model is multiple intelligences, which was pioneered by Professor Howard Gardner. He's a very famous person. States that all of us have multiple intelligences. You know, like we are measuring everything with IQ. We were actually, and we were thinking somebody who has the mathematical and the linguistic intelligence is great, like Einstein, and everybody else is stupid. That was the thinking, that was the actually biased thinking for years and years and years, after some of the scientists figured out some different types and colors of intelligences. This is no longer existing anymore. Otherwise, only the higher intellectual, mathematical and linguistic genies could learn and speak English. Look at the world, everybody does. It's only how to find it, where the intelligence is, and preparing the lessons accordingly. That's it. So far, there are 8, ladies and gentlemen, not even 2, let alone EQ. We are not even talking about this. There are 8 multiple intelligences believed to be possessed by human beings. Let's look at them. Linguistic, mathematical, there you go, bodily kinesthetic, musical, visual and spatial, intrapersonal, interpersonal, naturalistic, goes on and on. There is a separate section of these learning styles. We're going to go one by one through them. For us teachers, these models pinpoint certain lessons in our class. There are individuals who have various intelligences, just get to know this now, and learning styles. There is no best learning style, as the range of response varies from individual learner to the other. We teachers should ensure that our activities, all of them, are varied enough to cater to the needs of these individuals with multiple intelligences and diverse learning preferences. For sure, you cannot actually make for every single student a different lesson plan. So what you have to do is variety of activities which actually speak to all intelligences. Maybe one student is going to get it better with that activity, and the other student is going to be better performing with the other activity. So it's up to you to have this variety and diverse teaching styles. And now family, educational and cultural background, very important. At this point we have covered various aspects that explain individual variation in our classroom. The last aspect that we need to discuss is family and cultural background of your students, and I'm going to give you their more concrete examples from my experience. There are students who come from homes, ladies and gentlemen, where education ranks high in the parents' priority list. What does it mean? The parents think that education is very important. They would do anything for their kids to be going to schools and being a very, very well knowledgeable person. They would even sell their homes. They would do anything, because they were maybe not able to study themselves, and they want to have the further generation go further, basically. Therefore, these are the students who get full support for homework and other school activities. So if you want to do your homework or anything, or if the school actually asks you something to do, your parents will never say no. That's good when you have these kinds of students. These are the students who pose the least problems, as the curriculum says here. But others may come from homes with little or no parental support at all. And oftentimes they are the ones that demand teachers considerable attention. Some of them are maybe the ones we mentioned before. They think that you are the knowledge giver parent, like an orphan animal goes to another group. So another group of students who can pose a great challenge to the teacher are those whose culture is different from that of the teacher. And I'll tell you that why as well. They may feel differently about certain topics and may respond differently to certain activities. One culture that has a great impact on learning is the culture of silence. In some parts of the world, classroom activities are mostly teacher-centered, where students listen more to the teacher but speak and do less. In some cultures, even talking, asking something is kind of challenging somebody you should be respecting, and it's an insult. How can you question the teacher? She is the all-knower, the most knowledgeable, the pinnacle of the education. You just have to obey, listen, take some notes, memorize, and don't open your mouth and don't say anything against him. Otherwise, you'll be punished. They learn that from the childhood on. And now, you might be forcing these students as a Westerner, as a most Westerner, you might be forcing these students to say something against even you. Specifically, one day when they grow up in language and have to, for example, debate. They are not used to give their opinions when somebody is older in the room. So these are challenges you might be facing. I'm going to give you more examples as we actually further go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is hopefully giving you an idea of how to approach a language learner from age, from cultural background, from motivation, the real reason, learning goals, from the family and background we talked about, and you will be dealing with different variety of students, and you know what? Most of them in the same class. And don't worry, you'll be even dealing with multi-leveled classrooms, where even if all the students are coming from same culture, imagine you are Filipino, or you are, let's say you are Indian, or you are Iranian or Iraqian, whatever, and all the students are having No problem. They're all the same age like you, a bit younger than you. You share the same culture, no problem, okay? They are all intrinsically into it. They love you, you love them, you know your stuff, but their levels are different. So there will be always differences, and mostly more than one aspect is different. But there are so many students waiting for you to help them, and I'm 100% sure that we will be able to help you to find a way to do so. See you next time.